taking medication and the fear of making tinnitus worse. I get asked about this every day. This is a really important issue with tinnitus. And the most important thing to realize here is that fear is one of the main drivers of tinnitus. So if we're afraid of doing anything that can activate our fight or flight fear response in the nervous system, and anything that makes us afraid can cause our listening to heighten its hypervigilance and listen out for danger. And even though it sounds very low tech, the fundamental base of tinnitus is that the more we come out of fearful thinking and feeling and settle into a much calmer, who cares, so what, switched off, safe, calm and unthreatened state, the more the hearing actually desensitizes itself and switches off. So if we're worried that something's going to make us afraid, like medication, we can become very anxious about this. And this anxiety can push into the fearful response that drives tinnitus. The most important thing is, first of all, to speak to your doctor. Do speak to a doctor about this, because they will have a lot of experience with medication. There are medications that have been very helpful in my practice. I've had many clients with tinnitus who have benefited from medication, and do get the advice of your doctor. Very often they say that you need to take the medication for a while to feel the impact of it, and the fearful response that people may have can have quite a big impact on what happens, but the medication can do something else. So it's very useful to speak to doctors who have a lot of experience with medication, and certainly after a period of time that can help a lot. The other thing to say is that with most people with tinnitus, it's very, very common that tinnitus people haven't yet learnt to self-soothe. We get into a state about things, we become anxious and afraid, and the mind goes into a spin, and before we know it, oh my God, there's a full-blown crisis going on, and we find it very hard to calm down the racing thoughts and to get the panic buttons to switch off. So having very calming practices like yoga or Tai Chi are really important. I'm not just talking about standing up and stretching for 10 minutes. If I get into a state about something, it takes me often half an hour, 45 minutes to really calm myself down and get into a much better space. So in order to get back into a regular state of well-being, especially when you've gone through a really bad time with tinnitus, I thoroughly recommend learning a yoga practice or a Tai Chi routine or some Pilates techniques, something body-based, so that you get out of thinking and catastrophizing mode into a calming, settling, soothing body practice. Because after your daily practice, or when you get a bit agitated about something, you can really calm yourself down. And when you know you can do this, it's incredibly helpful. And psychologically, you feel very empowered, and it's very soothing. So for something like taking medication and anxiety about medication, if you can learn how to really settle yourself and get into a good space, then you're going to get a much more accurate view of whether the medication is helping you or not. Please separate out anxiety and how this affects you, and medication and how that affects you. And please do get medical advice. It's best not to go online and to read all the stuff that people have written about medication, because often you just get the anxious, fearful stuff online, which is highly counterproductive. It's much better to talk to people who have a lot of experience with this, doctors, for example, and they would be able to give you a much clearer, more accurate set of feedback.